Ladies and gentlemen, beloved brothers and sisters, protection is not something you feel. It's something you know by revelation. Many people think that being protected by God means living a life free from pain, challenges, or trials. But I've come to tell you today that protection from God is not measured by the absence of danger, but by the presence of purpose. God doesn't protect you to make you comfortable. He protects you to keep you aligned with your divine assignment. And when you are in alignment with your assignment, you will find that heaven begins to defend what it has invested in. There are signs, clear, undeniable signs, that you're walking under divine protection. And these signs may not look the way you expect. One of the first signs is that danger seems to pass over you when others are being consumed by it. The weapon may be formed, but it does not prosper. The trap may be set, but it does not spring. The plague may come near, but it does not enter. People around you may wonder why things don't affect you the same way, but you know deep within, it's not luck. It's not coincidence, it's covenant. God's protection is a covenant, not a convenience. A covenant is an unbreakable agreement that God binds to Himself. He doesn't guard you because you're special in the eyes of men. He guards you because you're essential to His purpose. That means even when you are not aware of the enemy's strategies, God already canceled them. Not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. You carry destiny, you carry answers. You carry light in a dark world. And because of that, you are covered. Another sign is that your enemies cannot explain your survival. People have counted you out. Some expected your fall, even planned for it. But you're still standing. You're still producing. You're still praising. That is not ordinary. That's divine. When you're under God's protection, your life becomes a mystery to the enemy. Every time the devil thought he had you, God interrupted his schedule. Every time the pit was dug, God built a bridge over it. You didn't survive because you were smart. You survived because God had already assigned angels concerning you. And here's something else: when you are protected by God, doors close that would have destroyed you. Yes, protection doesn't always look like what we want. Sometimes it looks like rejection. Sometimes it looks like delay. Sometimes it feels like disappointment. But if God didn't allow it, then you didn't need it. That job that didn't call you back. That relationship that ended. That opportunity that vanished. Don't curse it. Thank God for it. Because what looked like a shut door was really a shield in disguise. You'll also know you're protected when you find peace in the middle of chaos. I'm not talking about surface peace. I'm talking about that deep, unshakable peace that doesn't make sense. The kind that makes people wonder, why aren't you panicking? It's because when you're in alignment with God, storms don't scare you. They reveal what's already inside you. You walk through fire, and you don't smell like smoke. That peace is evidence of divine presence. And where His presence is, His protection is guaranteed. Here's another sign. When God begins to expose what you could not see. Sometimes He protects you by revelation. He shows you the motives of people. He reveals the traps before you step into them. He gives you discernment to sense danger in disguise. That's not paranoia. That's protection. It's the Holy Spirit giving you intel from heaven. Don't ignore those nudges. Don't overlook those dreams. That's God's surveillance system at work. But one of the most powerful signs of divine protection is that your purpose keeps moving forward in spite of opposition. Every time something tries to stop you, your purpose makes a way. That's because when purpose is preserved, protection is provided. You're not protected just because you're praying. You're protected because your life is connected to heaven's blueprint. As long as you are pursuing the reason for your existence, angels are on assignment. Heaven guards what earth cannot see, your assignment. And don't ever confuse visibility with security. Just because you can't see the hand of God doesn't mean He's not holding you. Divine protection is not always visible, but it is always intentional. God is not casual about your life. He is strategic. He is precise. He is deliberate. Even in your lowest moments, He was watching. Even in your darkest seasons, He was working. And He didn't bring you this far to leave you exposed. So if you're wondering whether you are protected by God, don't just look around, look within. Are you still standing? Are you still breathing? Is purpose still pulling you forward? Then you are covered, you are kept, you are sealed. Not by man, not by luck, but by covenant. Protection is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of divine order in trouble. God's protection is a covenant, not a convenience. That statement alone shifts your entire theology if you let it. Many believers are living with a mindset that sees God as a cosmic bodyguard, always reacting to danger like some emergency responder. But God does not react, He preordains. He does not protect you based on the current situation. He protects you based on the eternal intention. His protection is not emotional, it's legal. It's not based on your mood, but on His word. God is not interested in making you comfortable. He's committed to making you complete. A covenant is a binding agreement that cannot be broken by time, trouble, or human failure. When God makes a covenant with you, He ties Himself to your destiny. He ties your safety to His name. In fact, the reason many of us are still here today is not because we kept the rules, but because God kept the covenant. Even when we broke our promises, He kept His. Even when we lost focus, He maintained position. He didn't protect you because you were perfect. He protected you because He made a promise. Now listen carefully. The problem with many people today is that they treat God's protection like insurance, only useful in a crisis. But God's covenant does not operate on demand. It operates on alignment. That means protection is not activated by panic. It is activated by position. Are you in position? Are you walking in the covenant? Are you submitted to His kingdom, to His ways, to His instructions? Because when you walk under the rule of the King, His responsibility is to protect every citizen of His domain. You don't have to beg for protection when you're under kingdom government. It comes with citizenship. But let me make this clear. God's covenant of protection doesn't mean you won't face storms. It means storms will not destroy you. It doesn't mean you won't walk through the fire. It means the fire will be forced to respect the hand of God on your life. The children of Israel still walked through the Red Sea, but it didn't drown them. Daniel still went into the lion's den, but the lions were silenced. The Hebrew boys were still thrown into the furnace, but the fire lost its power. Why? Because covenant overrules condition. This is why you must renew your mind. Protection is not about escaping life. It's about enduring life with divine backing. That's the beauty of covenant. God doesn't just take you out, sometimes He holds you while you're in it. And even the enemy can't explain how you're still standing, because covenant doesn't ask the enemy for permission to keep you. It declares, "Touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm." And let me speak prophetically to someone today. God has protected you from things you didn't even know were coming. There were accidents that never happened. There were schemes that never formed. There were attacks that failed in the spirit before they ever reached the natural. And the reason you didn't even feel the hit was because covenant intercepted it. That's the kind of protection we walk in when we understand God's nature. He's not a God of convenience. He doesn't show up only when we cry loud enough. He's a God of order, a God of promise, a God who says, "I am not a man that I should lie, nor the son of man that I should change my mind." What He said He will do. And if He said He will keep you, He will keep you. If He said no weapon formed against you shall prosper, then even if the weapon looks deadly, it will malfunction before it touches your soul. You don't have to chase protection. You have to chase purpose, because covenant follows purpose. When you pursue the call of God, the covenant of God becomes your covering. You don't need to live in fear. You need to live in faith, faith in a God who does not lie, does not sleep, and does not lose battles. His protection is not based on how you feel. It's based on what He has declared. That's why I say again, God's protection is a covenant, not a convenience. When purpose is preserved, protection is provided. That is not a religious statement. It's a kingdom principle. You see, God does not protect people based on emotion. He protects based on purpose. And until your purpose is complete, you are not permitted to be destroyed. That's why some of you have survived what should have taken you out. It wasn't because you were stronger. It wasn't because you were wiser. It was because purpose hadn't finished its work in you yet. The greatest security on earth is not found in money, connections, or physical strength. It's found in purpose. The safest place to be is in the center of what you were born to do. Purpose is not just a mission. It's a mandate from heaven. And anything that heaven mandates, heaven protects. So if you are pursuing your God-given assignment, you are not walking alone. You are walking with divine insurance. Hell may surround you, but it cannot consume you, because God is not trying to preserve your comfort. He's preserving your calling. Let me tell you something that will shake your theology. Some people died not because God was unfaithful, but because they had completed their assignment. And others are still alive, not because they are righteous, but because their assignment is still active. God is not sentimental. He is strategic. He will guard what He intends to use. He will preserve what He plans to fulfill. That's why the devil is after your purpose. He doesn't mind you going to church. He doesn't mind you singing songs. But the moment you start moving in purpose, you become a threat to darkness. That's when he comes for you. That's when warfare begins. But hear me clearly, if the enemy cannot stop your purpose, he cannot stop your life. Purpose draws protection. That's why Jesus, though he was hunted by kings and betrayed by friends, could not be killed before the cross. He slipped through crowds. He silenced storms. He walked on water, not because he was trying to show off, but because his hour had not yet come. The moment your purpose is intact, heaven ensures your time is preserved. But when you abandon purpose, you also step out of the covering, because protection is tied to assignment. This is why you must guard your purpose with your life. Purpose is not optional, it is essential. You were not created for pleasure, you were created for impact. There are people assigned to your voice. There are systems waiting for your ideas. There are nations tied to your obedience. And until what God planted in you is released into the world, you are a vessel under divine protection. That's why Paul could survive shipwrecks, snake bites, prison cells, and assassination attempts. It wasn't because Paul was lucky. It was because Paul was aligned. He said, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race. In other words, when purpose was completed, he was ready to go, but not before. God does not let purpose be buried prematurely. And if he allowed you to wake up this morning, then purpose is still in motion. So stop asking God to protect your plans. Ask him to protect his purpose in you. Your ideas may fail. Your schedule may collapse, but his purpose will prevail. When you are submitted to that purpose, heaven defends you. Angels are dispatched. Doors open. Traps fail. Why? Because when purpose is preserved, protection is provided. If you want to stay in divine protection, stay in divine purpose. Don't chase applause. Don't chase platforms. Chase assignment. Pursue why you were born. Because God does not guard fantasies, he guards destiny. And your destiny is too important to leave exposed. So walk boldly, walk fearlessly, and walk faithfully in purpose. Because when purpose is preserved, protection is provided. Heaven guards what earth cannot see, your assignment. This truth should ignite something in your spirit today. The world may look at you and see a person, but heaven sees an assignment. People may see a face, but the kingdom sees a purpose. The problem is that most of us are living according to what the world can see, not what heaven has revealed. Earth judges by appearance, but heaven judges by assignment. And that's why God doesn't just protect you because of your physical presence. He protects you because of your spiritual assignment. You see, the things that matter most are often invisible. Your assignment is something the world cannot perceive with natural eyes. It's not always a job, a title, or a ministry, though it may manifest in those ways. Your assignment is the eternal purpose that God has placed within you to accomplish on the earth. And it is tied to something much greater than yourself. It is connected to the kingdom of God and the expansion of his will on earth. That assignment may not always make sense to people, and it may not always be visible to the naked eye. But to heaven, it's a matter of divine strategy. That's why when you walk in your assignment, there is divine protection you can't always explain. Your assignment isn't just some task you've chosen. It's a mandate from heaven. And because of that, heaven stands guard over it. You might not see the angels who are working behind the scenes. You may never hear the whispers of divine instruction that are constantly guarding you. But trust me, every step you take in obedience to your assignment is covered. Every decision you make aligned with God's purpose for your life is protected. Heaven is invested in your assignment. That's why when things look impossible in the natural, God makes the supernatural way. Do you realize that the protection you need is often the protection you can't see? You don't always need to be aware of the traps set for you. You don't need to know all the attacks in the spirit realm that are aimed at your life. You don't need to know how many doors God has shut for your protection, or how many times the enemy tried to launch an attack only to find it nullified. Heaven is guarding what earth cannot see, your assignment. The moment you align with God's purpose, heaven mobilizes its forces. Your assignment becomes its priority. That's why David, when he was being pursued by Saul, could walk through dangerous situations and still survive. He wasn't just a shepherd boy, he was anointed king. Saul could see David's face, but he couldn't see the assignment on his life. Saul saw a threat to his throne, but he couldn't see the throne that was already ordained for David. And as long as David's assignment had not yet been fulfilled, heaven would not allow anything to harm him. This is why the enemy hates your assignment. He doesn't fear your popularity, your wealth, or your status. What he fears is the purpose of God in you. The devil cannot stop God's purpose in your life, but he can try to distract you, confuse you, and make you forget that it exists. But I've come to remind you today that your assignment is the very thing that heaven has placed a seal of protection on. No matter what the enemy tries, your assignment will outlive the attack. Your purpose will outlast the storm. And that's why you must be vigilant. Not for the sake of survival, but for the sake of fulfilling your assignment. The devil will try to make you focus on the temporary, on the distractions of life, on the trials that seem overwhelming, on the difficulties that appear insurmountable. But those are just distractions. Your assignment is the real target. And as long as you keep your focus on the assignment that heaven has given you, the protection of heaven will keep you on course. So never forget, what heaven sees is what matters. The assignment you've been given is not a small thing. It is the very reason you were created, and it's the very reason heaven is backing you. When you walk in your divine purpose, heaven goes before you. It walks beside you. It surrounds you. And even when you cannot see it, heaven guards what earth cannot see, your assignment. Divine protection is not always visible, but it's always intentional. There are many times in life when you don't see the hand of God actively working in your situation. You may look around and wonder, where is God in this? Why does it seem like I'm walking through this alone? But let me assure you today, just because divine protection isn't visible doesn't mean it isn't intentional. In fact, God is often protecting you in ways you cannot see, in places you cannot go, and in moments you are unaware of. Think about the times you've been in near accidents, close calls, situations where you could have lost everything, but somehow you walked away unscathed. You didn't see the angel that deflected the car that nearly hit you. You didn't see the protection that blocked that wrong relationship from pulling you off course. You didn't see the unseen forces that shut doors that would have led you into destruction. The protection was not visible, but it was intentional. Heaven was watching over you, even when you couldn't see it. God is always intentional in His protection. His protection is not arbitrary, it is deliberate. He doesn't guard you by accident or out of coincidence. He guards you because He has a plan for your life. His protection is tied to His purpose. And just because you don't see the strategy doesn't mean there is no strategy. There's a reason you've made it this far. There's a reason your story hasn't ended yet. And it's because divine protection is at work, intentionally positioning you for the next phase of your life. The truth is, divine protection often works behind the scenes. God doesn't always need to make His presence known for His power to be active. In fact, one of the greatest demonstrations of divine protection is that you may never even know what you were kept from. God doesn't have to make a spectacle out of His protection. He's too sovereign for that. Often, He will protect you quietly without you ever realizing the danger He's spared you from. He doesn't always show you what could have happened. He simply ensures that it doesn't. This is the principle of divine providence. God orchestrates your life with an intention that is bigger than your current understanding. You may be in a trial, facing challenges that seem overwhelming. But trust me when I tell you, the protection of God is operating in ways that transcend what you can see. What looks like a struggle is often the hand of God, moving in the background to position you for what's ahead. The doors that close, the relationships that end, the opportunities that slip away. These are all acts of divine protection that are intentionally designed to guide you towards the path you are meant to take. It is when you are unaware that God's protection is often most powerful. He doesn't need your approval. He doesn't need your attention. He just needs your obedience. His plan is in motion, and He is protecting you because He has a purpose to fulfill in and through you. His protection is not about your comfort, it's about your calling. And when you understand that, you will see that every event, every moment of your life has been orchestrated with divine intentionality. Now, let me tell you this. God is not caught by surprise. You may be wondering why certain things are happening, why you're facing this situation, or why things seem uncertain. But God is never uncertain. He knows exactly where you are, what you're going through, and what is coming next. And He has already made provisions to protect you along the way. His protection isn't just reactive, it's proactive. He goes before you, covering you before you even realize you need it. There is a scripture that reminds us of this truth in Psalm 121:8. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. God doesn't just protect you when you're in trouble. He protects you from things you haven't even encountered yet. He guards your future, your purpose, and your destiny, even when you cannot see it with your natural eyes. Divine protection is not always visible, but it's always intentional. And when you walk in the knowledge that God is intentionally protecting you, it will change the way you face life's challenges. You will no longer fear what's ahead because you know that God's plan is at work. You will no longer be afraid of the unknown because you trust that the one who knows everything is leading you. And you will walk confidently, knowing that every step you take is covered, even if you don't see it. The safest place on earth is not a location. Many is obedience. Spend our lives searching for safety, looking for the right place, the right environment, or the right circumstances that will offer us security. We think if we find the perfect job, the perfect city, the perfect relationships, we'll be safe. But I'm here to tell you today that safety is not found in a place, it's found in a posture. The posture of obedience to God. Obedience is the pathway to protection. When you are aligned with God's will, no matter where you are in the safest place possible. Let me make this clear. It is not the absence of trouble that makes you safe. It is the presence of obedience. In fact, you can be in the most dangerous environment, yet be perfectly safe if you are walking in obedience to God. Just ask the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were thrown into the fiery furnace for refusing to bow to the idol, but they were in the safest place on earth because they were in obedience to the will of God. The furnace could not touch them. The fire had no power over them. The flames could not consume them because their obedience had placed them in a realm of divine protection. You see, God doesn't promise to protect you just because you're in a good place. He promises to protect you when you are in His will. Protection is a byproduct of obedience. When you walk in alignment with God's commands, you are covered by His hand. The safest place for you to be is in the center of God's will, regardless of the external circumstances. Whether it's a valley, a desert, or a storm, when you are obedient to God, you are walking in divine safety. Obedience keeps you under divine authority. When you obey, you acknowledge that God's wisdom surpasses your own. You declare that you trust His plan more than you trust your own understanding. And in that trust, protection is released. God does not protect those who walk in rebellion or disobedience. His protection is reserved for those who walk in alignment with His divine purpose. Remember, it is not the location that keeps you safe. It is the alignment with the purpose of God for your life. No matter where God sends you, whether it's to a foreign land or a foreign situation, obedience ensures that heaven's protection is with you. When God tells you to do something, whether it's to move, to speak, to forgive, or to act, your safety lies in your willingness to obey. God doesn't give instructions without protection. Every command He gives is laced with divine coverage. That's why Jonah found himself in the belly of a great fish. He wasn't in a location of safety because he was running from God. But when he turned back in obedience, even the fish that swallowed him was part of God's plan for his preservation. The safest place on earth is obedience, and even in a storm, that obedience will bring you into peace. There are moments when obedience doesn't make sense. You may not understand why God is asking you to take a certain step. You may not know why He's leading you into a situation that looks uncertain. But the moment you obey, you enter into a realm of protection that transcends human logic. Your safety is not guaranteed by your ability to figure things out. It is guaranteed by your willingness to trust God's voice, to follow His instructions, and to walk in His will. And let's not forget, obedience to God often positions you in places where others might be at risk, but you will be kept. Abraham was called to leave everything he knew and go to a land he had never seen. And even in his journey, God provided. Joseph's obedience took him from the pit to the palace, from a prisoner to a ruler. Jesus, in his obedience to the Father, went to the cross, but the power of his obedience secured not just his safety, but the salvation of the world. Obedience is the bridge between divine protection and your purpose. When you step into obedience, you step into a supernatural realm where God's protection surrounds you. It doesn't matter what the enemy tries to throw at you. It doesn't matter what the world says about you. When you are obedient to God, you are in the safest place you could ever be. The safest place on earth is not a location, it is obedience. And when you walk in obedience to the will of God, no weapon formed against you will prosper. You are invincible in your obedience. You are shielded by divine purpose, surrounded by divine protection, and covered by the hand of God. In conclusion, I want to remind you that the protection of God is not just a reaction to your needs. It is the very essence of his covenant with you. His protection is not random but intentional. It is not based on convenience but rooted in divine purpose. God's protection is tied to the assignment on your life. And when you walk in obedience, you are walking in the safest place you could ever be, right in the center of his will. Understand this, the safest place on earth is not a location. It is a position. It is the position of being in alignment with God's purpose for your life. Protection is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of divine order in the midst of trouble. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, not because the weapons don't come, but because the protection of God is greater than any threat that rises against you. When purpose is preserved, protection is provided. God will guard what he has destined, and when you align yourself with his will, you enter into a realm where heaven's protection surrounds you like a shield. Heaven is actively involved in protecting your assignment, even when you don't see it. Your protection is not determined by what is visible, but by what is intentional in the spirit realm. So walk with the confidence that you are not walking alone. You are walking under divine cover, under the protection of a covenant that cannot be broken. The enemy may plot, but he cannot prevail, because the hand of God is upon you. The safest place you can ever be is not where you feel comfortable, but where you are obedient to his call. Let this truth be your anchor in the storms of life. God has a purpose for you, and his protection is the guarantee that you will fulfill it. When purpose is preserved, protection is provided. And when you walk in obedience, you stand in the safest place on earth, wrapped in the divine covering of the Almighty God.